Crisis intervention officers taunted, threatened, and used force against an 8-year-old boy with a history of mental health treatment.
That is just one example of the patterns of force and discrimination laid out in a Department of Justice investigation into the Memphis Police Department. Now, Fox 13 first told you about this report. In fact, it was released last night. It says that Memphis police must change the way they respond to crime, but also how they treat members of our community.
But we also have to be real. Memphis still has a significant crime challenge. So how do police officers balance both? Ahead of this DOJ report, before it was released, I sat down exclusively with Interim Police Chief C.G. Davis, covering violent crime, gangs, and patrols. This interview is longer than you typically see here on Fox 13, but we thought it was important, so we kept Chief Davis's comments as complete as possible.
I know it breaks our heart when we're reporting on 12, 13, 14-year-old children.
Yeah.
Let's call them what they are.
Absolutely.
Picking up weapons, outfitting them sometimes with devices that make them automatic.
Yes.
And committing these horribly violent crimes. How does the Memphis Police Department fight that? Where does that begin?
Well, and it's a very complex issue because, throughout my career, I was used to responding to calls or having my detectives respond to calls where you're dealing with adults when it comes to violent crime. The new phenomenon, not just here, but in many cities, is that young people and individuals that are minors are getting their hands on weapons and being influenced by whether it's the media, whether or not it's, individuals in their schools or whatever the case might be. Those influences have made the possession of weapons and stealing vehicles sort of like, a challenge for them. And it's a very awkward position for a police officer to be in, to be confronted with a 13-year-old, so to speak, a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old, even a 16-year-old with a weapon. And, in life and death situations, it becomes very, very complicated to make sure that you're doing the right thing, in those situations. And we see quite often young people that we stop. They have extended magazines on weapons. They have Glock switches on weapons. And that makes for a very, very dangerous kind of situation, not just for the officer, but community members and innocent bystanders.
How much of that is gang influenced from what you've seen?
So we put out some numbers about a week or so ago about gangs in the city of Memphis. And what I want to do is I want to put some context to that. Because you have some traditional gangs that, have probably been in the landscape of Memphis for several years. Your Crips, your Bloods, your Vice Lords, and those sort of traditional gangs. And then you have gangs that we call hybrid gangs. A group of young people to decide that we're from, this particular neighborhood and we're going to call ourselves the South Side Cool Boys or whatever you want to call it. Those gangs sometimes don't last, for generations, so to speak. So we do count those groups because they're active and they're committing crimes until they're either dissolved or, they end up breaking up for whatever reason. And I believe that we put the same focus on each. It doesn't matter if it's one of those gangs that are more traditional or some that just sort of bud or mushroom into a larger active group in the city. We put emphasis on any gang that's committing violent crime in the city.
By the same token, what do you, as the police chief of Memphis, Tennessee, say to a small business owner who has had his or her shop broken into 2, 3, 4 different times with a smash and grab, stealing not only merchandise, but also destroying a facade?
Yeah.
What do you say to that business owner?
Yeah, I say, first of all, we want to partner with you because we want your business to be successful in Memphis. Memphis, to me, and I think a lot of people, Memphis has a lot of potential. And there is potential for business growth here. There is potential for businesses to be more involved in crime fighting as well. And I think that conversation and that narrative is becoming more and more robust because business owners are saying, what can I do? How do I get my cameras integrated in your system? And not only that, we have what we call business awareness forums. We hired, when you talk about not having enough officers, We need officers to do crime prevention and proactive types of work in the community. So we hired back, retired officers, and they do a lot of business awareness forums. They do what we call community policing through environmental design, SEPTED assessments. They go to the business, Walgreens, you need to cut your hedges down, you need to put lights up on all corners of your parking lot. That'll cut down on some of the car break-ins. Just simple things in the environment can help reduce crime. And so those officers have been very busy and very active in being proactive with our businesses, and not just with our businesses, but our residents as well.
Technology advancements. I know you guys were just talking about, along with the mayor, there was the announcement the other day of the cameras.
Yeah.
Lots of new cameras.
Yes.
Do you have enough people to man all those cameras and react to the video you're seeing, given the fact that you are fighting a deficit?
Yeah. Well, I think the other piece to that is that there are not Memphis police officers monitoring all the cameras. The idea is to increase the cameras, just like in other major cities, increase the camera footprint so that there is a visible deterrent there, and to have enough individuals monitoring cameras when serious calls come up. That officer that's monitoring the camera can respond real time and communicate real time to the officers that are responding to the scene to basically say, you need to be looking for a black Cherokee that left southbound on such and such a street. So the idea really is to connect all of the various communication resources, our CAD system, which is our dispatcher system, so that when serious calls come up, officers will get that information, and those individuals monitoring cameras will also see the closest 5 or 6 cameras to that area. And they're able to communicate what they're seeing as officers are responding.
How do you tell someone in South Memphis, and understand where I'm coming from with this,
Okay.
when you do put a focus on downtown,
Okay.
and you do put a focus on Wolf Chase and those areas where you have obviously outlined a genuine strategy, how do you tell someone in South Memphis that we're not saying that downtown is more important than you? Because sometimes if you're the average citizen at 11:30 at night when they hear the gunshots, they might feel that way. How do you say that?
We just tell them. We just tell them how important they are. And that community in South Memphis is just as important as downtown. It's just that people have a tendency to want to put more emphasis, on maybe the downtown space. But we have a strategic plan that addresses the problems in Airway Station, the problems in Orange Mound, the problems in Boxtown. We have trailer thefts in Boxtown and some of those areas. So we put resources down there, not just from the Memphis Police Department, but also from, other agencies that are working with us so that we can crack down on those types of crimes. The same with vehicle takeovers. We have vehicle takeovers, sometimes that not in the downtown space, sometimes they're in Martin Luther King Park. So we put other resources, technology, and how do we suppress those things that really impact the quality of life for those community members too. So when I said we have a strategic planning session, every quarter we sit down with our colonels and we talk about what is it that we need to do to address the specific problems in that particular area, to customize it. So I don't want any of our community members to think that there is not a plan for their community. There is a plan for every precinct in the city of Memphis.
Again, important that interview was done and conducted before the DOJ investigation was released this week.